get started here in a couple minutes. We are currently live. Hopefully there's people jumping in.
It's just circling. Oh, wait.
Hi, everyone. Hopefully people are starting to check in. We'll get started here in a couple minutes. This is our first time trying this, so please excuse any possible bugs that we may have as we try to get this going. We'll give it a couple minutes to get a couple people in here before we start. Hopefully everybody's doing good. Like I said, we'll get started here in a couple minutes. We'll just let a couple more stragglers jump on before we get talking, and we'll get going from there. Just sit here and get nice and toasty next to the fire. Please excuse the giggles of the camera girl. We'll give it another minute or two, and then we'll get started. The fire sure is inviting. Give it another minute and we'll get started. All right, everyone, let's get started. Anybody that jumps in can jump in as we go. So thank you all for joining us this evening. Welcome to my living room. My name's Dave Moore. I'm the curator and the museum manager at the McKeesport Regional History and Heritage Center. And we're embracing the new normal. We're doing a virtual program for everybody to enjoy tonight. Coming again live from my living room with this beautiful fire on our television screen here. And what we're going to talk about tonight is a topic that's near and dear to my heart, and that is the history of golf, but particularly the history of golf in Western Pennsylvania. Golf has meant a lot to me in my life. I grew up playing the game. It jump-started my career, and it's still one of my absolute favorite sports to watch and play. And I've been very fortunate that I've been able to share the history of some of our local golf courses with the public and other parts of my career. And this just seemed like a good program to start with these virtual programs. So our inaugural Fireside Chat with Dave is going to focus on the history of golf in Western Pennsylvania. And this first chapter, as I'm going to call it, is the foundations of golf in our area from the late 19th century till about 1925. So let's jump into it. Golf in America started to become more and more popular in the late 19th century. The first mention of golf in what would become the United States was from 1739, when a southern farmer named William Wallace ordered a shipment of golf clubs from England to a South Carolina farm. And there were numerous mentions of the game over the next century plus, but it really wouldn't be until the late 1800s, especially the 1890s, when golf in America would start to take root. And when you think of golf in America, you're probably thinking along the eastern seaboard, and you're probably thinking in areas such as New England, the New York, New Jersey metropolitan area, and right around New Jersey, or Philadelphia. But the history of golf in America can date back to 1887 in our own backyard. And that's where we're going to start today. The history of golf in Western Pennsylvania is really the beginning of golf in America. And that journey starts in 1884. In 1884, a gentleman by the name of Joseph Michael Fox was playing cricket for the Marion Cricket Club and was on a tour of the United Kingdom with the club and was playing a couple of games up in Scotland. And during one of their days off, he decided to go take a look at the game that was taking the British Isles by storm, which was none other than golf. So Fox headed over to the old course at St. Andrews, which is known as the home of golf, and that course is located in Scotland. And that day he was given a rudimentary lesson by the resident head professional, and that was a gentleman by the name of Old Tom Morris. And when Fox left and came back to the States, he was equipped with a new set of golf clubs and a couple dozen gutta-percha balls, which were goose feather stuffed golf balls. And over the next few years, Fox became more and more enamored with the game. And in 1887, up in Clarion County, where he made his residence, he decided that he was going to create his own golf course. And that year, he created Foxburg Country Club. Now, Foxburg was, at the time, a small 8-hole course, and it eventually added a 9th hole. And it exists to this day. It is the oldest functioning golf course, according to different researchers, in the continental United States. And it's no more than 60 miles from where most of us are sitting right now. So it's pretty cool to see that golf, is considered to get its start along the eastern seaboard, but it really got its start right here in Western Pennsylvania. Now, when we think of golf in the Pittsburgh metropolitan area, we're looking in the era of the 1890s when golf really comes to be here. And it starts with basically 4 golf clubs. And the first one came along in Allegheny City. Now, for those of you that are not familiar with the Pittsburgh area or are not familiar with Allegheny City was located where the present-day North Side is. So you're talking the banks of the Ohio and the Allegheny Rivers, where PNC Park, Heinz Field, and the surrounding neighborhoods there are currently located. And in 1895, a group of men led by a gentleman named John Moorhead, who was a standout athlete at Yale University, decided that they wanted to build their own golf course on the north side, or in Allegheny City. And this group, along with a gentleman named John Reed, set out to design their very own 9-hole golf course. And as I said, the year was 1895, and that golf course was Allegheny Country Club, which was the first golf course within the city proper of Pittsburgh, or in the Pittsburgh metro area. It opened in 1895, and later that summer, it held its very first invitational tournament. And to this day, over almost 120 years later, Allegheny Country Club has held that tournament every single year of its existence, which makes it the oldest tournament in the United States. And the north side really took to golf. Allegheny City really took to the game, and it became incredibly popular, and it started to grow within the city itself. The following year, a group of golf fanatics, headlined by the likes of Andrew Mellon and Henry Clay Frick, decided that they wanted their own golf club within the city proper. And in 1897, an 18-hole golf course was created in Shenley Park between the Oakland and Squirrel Hill boroughs of the city, and the Pittsburgh Golf Club was officially born. So you have the first 2 of the founding clubs in the Pittsburgh metro area. The next club that would be created along the Monongahela River, and by none other than Herman Westinghouse, sorry. And this club would be made in North Homestead on a property known as the Loomis property. But it didn't stay there very long. Westinghouse laid out several holes, but decided the following year that he was going to move to a bigger property, one that he in fact owned, which was the property of the Westinghouse Union Switch Company. And Edgewood Country Club was officially born in 1898 with the building of the clubhouse and the golf course on the Union Switch property. That following year, the gentleman that led Allegheny Country Club and the Pittsburgh Golf Club and Edgewood would all get together downtown at the Duquesne Club. And this would be May of 1899. And over this dinner, they decided that they wanted to create a metropolitan golf association very similar to what you would have seen in Philadelphia, New York, and Boston. And during that dinner, the Western Pennsylvania Golf Association was officially born, an organization that is still in existence today and still puts out several very highly regarded tournaments annually, including the Western Pennsylvania Open and the Western Pennsylvania Amateur. And John Moorhead of Allegheny Country Club was the organization's first president, and this group set out to create a schedule of individual and team tournaments that the founding clubs, particularly Allegheny, Edgewood, and Pittsburgh Golf Club, could all take part in. And one of the other founding members was a golf club known as the Shields Club of Edgeworth, which only existed for about another 12 years before it went defunct. Now, golf is continuing to grow as we go into the 20th century, and as the country is growing, the game of golf is growing. Allegheny City was also growing. The mass wave of immigration into this area caused the need for more housing, and Allegheny's meager 9 holes was starting to get very much encroached upon by the different settlement houses and apartment buildings going up in Allegheny City. And many of the wealthy elite from that area were quote-unquote summering down the Ohio River about 12 miles in the town of Sewickley. And the club considered, since many of its most affluent members were already summering down in Sewickley, perhaps that was the next natural place for Allegheny to move. So 2 years later, in 1902, Allegheny Country Club decided to move its grounds to the Sewickley Heights. They built their brand new clubhouse, which is still in existence on the property today. And they created an 18-hole golf course, which was designed by Tom Bendelow of the A.G. Spalding Company. And Allegheny still sits on that very property up in the Sewickley Heights. The next golf course that I definitely want to highlight is none other than Oakmont Country Club. And the beginnings of Oakmont are quite an interesting tale, depending on who is telling its origin story. The way I like telling it best, and this is documented, was around 1900, an industrialist named Henry Clay Phones had just sold his Carey Furnace Company down in Rankin, Pennsylvania, to Andrew Carnegie, which incorporated the furnace into U.S. Steel. Henry Phones at the time was roughly about 40 years old, and he became an incredibly wealthy man at a relatively young age. And at about this same time, Phones was an avid bicycle enthusiast, and one afternoon he was welding a tire back together when he noticed he was developing spots in his vision. And he was diagnosed with arteriosclerosis and basically given a year to live. So Phones decided to sell off his business interests, and he went to just enjoy what days he had left in his life. And after several months, he noticed that the spots in his vision was disappearing. And he goes to a doctor, and this time the doctor says, next time you weld something, wear the goggles, you'll be fine. So this great misdiagnosis on this original doctor's part in my belief, is the basis for the foundations of none other than Oakmont Country Club. Because in 1903, Henry, along with a group of investors, purchased 191 acres in Oakmont, and that original plot of land was purchased for $78,500, which in 2020's money is $2.3 million. And Oakmont Country Club was officially established. Now, Phones probably isn't as well known outside of our area and maybe the Pinehurst area where he wintered every year. But Phones' grand design in Oakmont was the only golf course he would ever make, and it has hosted 19 national championships to date. And Henry, a team of 150 men and 24 pack animals, hand dug that golf course. And when it opened for play on October 1st, 1904, it played at 6,406 yards and a par of 80. Now, going back to the clubs that originally settled this area, Edgewood Country Club would move on numerous occasions. We already talked how Westinghouse moved it from its original property to his Union Switch property. And in 1907, it would move again, this time to the McKelvey Farm, which was located in present-day Swissvale. But that wasn't the only club of the originals that was undergoing drastic changes right around this time. In 1910, the city of Pittsburgh Mayor William McGee took over the golf club, or I should say the golf course that was located in Shenley Park, which Pittsburgh Golf Club called home. And McGee decided that he was going to make the course open to the public, which very much angered the membership of Pittsburgh Golf Club. In fact, most members jumped ship, went to either Allegheny or Oakmont, and those that didn't join those two clubs but did in fact leave Pittsburgh Golf Club set out to find their own property to build their own golf course. So Pittsburgh Golf Club would eventually sell golf altogether, and though they are still in existence, they have nothing to do with the game at the present time. Meanwhile, while all these members from Pittsburgh Golf Club are jumping to Allegheny and Oakmont, Allegheny decides to go under some changes of its own. They hired probably the most world-renowned golf architect ever in Donald Ross to come in and redesign their golf course. And over the next 2 decades, Ross would either redesign or completely design new holes at the Allegheny Country Club. And many of his characteristics can still be seen to this day on that golf course. Now, for everybody in the Mon Valley that's watching this, I definitely don't want to leave you guys out because you do have one of the most historic golf courses right in your very own backyard, and that is none other than Youghiogheny Country Club. Now, right around this time, 1910, 1911, McKeesport is a thriving industrial city in America. At its peak, it would be the second largest city in western Pennsylvania, and just like those in Pittsburgh and Latrobe, Greensburg, and any of the bigger cities in our area, the wealthy elite wanted their own playground. And the wealthy elite of McKeesport purchased land, 107 acres to be exact, overlooking the Youghiogheny and the Monongahela rivers in McKeesport, and they created their own golf club known as Youghiogheny Country Club. Now, they purchased this 107 acres for a mere $9,000, which was roughly $250,000 in today's money. And the club opened in mid-1911 with just 4 holes. And by 1913, you would have a complete 9-hole golf course at Youghiogheny. Now, one of the other predominant clubs in our area is none other than the Pittsburgh Field Club, which was established in 1882 in the Regent Square section of the city of Pittsburgh. And golf is introduced by happenstance, for lack of a better way of putting it, because in 1914, Henry Clay Frick, who owned the land that the Field Club sat on, terminated the lease to the Field Club immediately, forcing them to search for new land. And a group of gentlemen led by a J.H. Tonkin decided to move the club and purchased 171 acres in the Fox Chapel area along the Allegheny River. And they brought all the other sports and amenities that the club already had, but they added golf. And Alexander Finley, who was another noted golf architect at this time, created the golf course starting in 1914, and it was completed in June of 1915 for play. Now, over the next couple of years, there's not a ton of growth as far as golf is concerned because you have the outbreak of World War I, and then in 1917 you have America's entrance into the war. And in fact, Oakmont Country Club was supposed to host the area's first national championship in 1917, but it was postponed due to the American entrance into the war, and it was postponed to 1919. Now, I will talk about the national championships at Oakmont and the other clubs in further chapters of this, but for right now, let's just note that the first national championship in our area was at Oakmont Country Club in 1919. But as we head into the Roaring 20s, golf is going to continue to grow in our area. And one of the first courses that is going to be born at this time is going to be none other than Latrobe Country Club. And just like the wealthy elite in McKeesport, the wealthy of the Greensburg, Latrobe area wanted their own playground. And they decided that they were going to create their very own golf course right along Route 30 when they purchased 63 acres of land. And in 1921, they started construction. And one of the people that was working on the golf course at that time was a gentleman named Milford Palmer. And he helped lay out that original 9 holes. And he would eventually go on to be the greenskeeper and the head professional. And known as Deacon, he would go on to father one of the game's most famous figures, and none other than Arnold Palmer. While Latrobe is being expanded, you're going to see Youghiogheny expand as well. The club was able to purchase an additional 78 acres of land in 1921, and they bring in renowned golf architect and 2-time British Open champion Willie Park Jr. to design their new 9 holes at the club. And on July 4th, 1922, the official 18-hole golf course at Youghiogheny Country Club would debut with none other than National 2 President Taylor Alderdice striking the ceremonial first shot. And while Youghiogheny was expanding, Edgewood Country Club would move for their 4th and final time the very same year. In 1921, Westinghouse and the other members of the club decided to finance one final move to Churchill when they purchased 167 acres of land along Churchill Road. And they followed the same route as Allegheny and hired none other than Donald Ross to design their golf course. And just like Youghiogheny Country Club, it opened on July 4th, 1922. So the final course that I want to highlight in tonight's chapter of the history of golf in Western Pennsylvania is none other than Fox Chapel Golf Club. And Fox Chapel would be founded thanks to the decision by the city of Pittsburgh mayor to make Pittsburgh Golf Club private. Many of those members decided that they needed a change, their own golf club, and they finally found the land they wanted right down the street from the field club. And Fox Chapel Golf Club was officially established in 1923. And it was designed by none other than Seth Rayner, another noted architect of the time. And the club opened for play for the very first time in 1925. So we're going to finish right there as far as the history and the foundations of golf in Western Pennsylvania are concerned. And as we go forward in these following chapters, what I'm going to highlight are the national amateurs, the U.S. Opens, the other major championships that have been contested in our very own backyard. But before I do that, I want to highlight a couple of things. There are now over 700 golf courses in Western Pennsylvania. So over a 130-year period, the growth of the game of golf in our area has just grown leaps and bounds. In that time, we have hosted over 30 national championships, one Ryder Cup, one Curtis Cup, and countless other regional, state, and national tournaments. We are the home of two of the greatest players in golf history, in Arnold Palmer and Carol Semple Thompson. And we continue to be a staple in the national golf scene as the U.S. Open and the U.S. Amateur and other national tournaments continue to come into our backyard and contest the best in the world, both on the amateur and the professional and the men's and the women's circuit. So that's going to end it for tonight, the first chapter. I thank everybody for tuning in, and I hope you enjoyed it. I know golf is not everybody's favorite topic, but it certainly is, as I said, near and dear to my heart. If you have any questions, as soon as I get off of this, I'm going to post on Facebook and our Instagram pages where you can post your questions for me on this early foundations of golf in Western PA. I'll be happy to answer any questions. I just think it's best to do it there so people don't have to sit through countless hours of me answering other questions. So, any questions you have, please comment on our post as soon as I get off, I will post that. Thank you everybody for joining us. I know this is very different. I know this is a crazy time. I know this is a scary time. But we hope that, for the last 25 minutes or so, you got to escape a little bit and listen to and learn something, hopefully, that you didn't know in the past. So thank you all for joining us. Please join us again. I believe we'll be on at this same time next week. And I'm not sure what I'll talk about first, whether it'll be the U.S. Opens or the U.S. Amateurs, but we'll be talking about national championships in our backyard. And stay safe, stay well, wash your hands, practice social distancing. The better we do at this, the sooner we all get to be together at the center again. So please, everybody, thank you all for watching, and good night.